Little, big. These two words spark a lot of ideas. Transformation, growth, lonely, scale, opposites, child, adult. When you take these two words and you take all those ideas and you start channeling them through art and the rest of the world, interesting things start to happen. Or at least they did for me. I need you to go back into the annals of your mind. I want you to think of a positive experience that you had when you were a child with an adult. Think happy thoughts, right? Maybe it's that time that you helped bake cookies, holiday cookies, or maybe it was that time that you finally rode your bike without the training wheels, your dad running alongside next to you. Or maybe it's that time you finally got your learner's permit and your mother let you drive home from the license branch. The whole time her fist clenched on the dashboard with all her strength and fear in her eyes and regret in her heart for letting you drive. But just think of those happy moments for you. What's important about those experiences, those good things, is they become memories. And those memories help shape who you are, who you ultimately become, and maybe even what experiences you provide to your children. Of course, the bad ones have the same effect. So as we move from little to big, we carry all these experiences with us. And as we start to get bigger, sometimes we start to feel small in the world. This is my story. Post-traumatic stress disorder and depression have many causes. I've had a lot of positive in my life, but like all of us, I often deal with intense emotional pain and vulnerability. I deal with sadness on a daily basis, irrational anger, and general moodiness. I think it's important that we say this out loud. Mental illness is real, and either directly or indirectly it affects us all. Let's say it together. Mental illness is real, and it either directly or indirectly affects us all. Good, thank you. Having said that, you should all know I'm not a doctor. I have no magic pill. I don't have snake oil. What I am is an artist that suffers from PTSD and depression. And what I've been doing is trying to find a better balance in my own life so that I can understand myself and explain myself to others. I want to be able to communicate how I feel. I'm doing this by channeling anger and hate and frustration into my art. And I'm trying to do it in a non-threatening way. As I made my own journey from little to big, I realized I was missing a memory. I don't have that moment with my father where we're both leaning over the sink covered in shaving cream learning to shave. You see, my father had a beard almost my entire life, so I guess it's not his fault, but shaving just wasn't something that happened. The point is, I hate shaving. It's in my top 5 of most hated things to do. And while shaving can be traumatic, it is not, in fact, the cause of my own PTSD or depression. I'm sharing this story just to help emphasize one of the symptoms. And I know we all hate doing those everyday necessary things that are just a complete waste of time, but I really hate shaving. I mean, I hate it. I hate thinking about doing it. I hate doing it. I hate cleaning up after doing it. I lock the bathroom door so that no one in my family accidentally walks in and witnesses such a vile act. I shave at night when they're asleep, or I shave when they're at work. I come home on my lunch break to shave so that they don't have to know I'm doing it. Weird? Yes. Irrational? I could maybe agree a little bit. But I really hate it. And I know you're all thinking right now, big deal. Grow a beard, right? Beards are hip. Beards are cool. Everyone has a beard. Therein lies the rub. I hate facial hair. Almost as much as I hate shaving. Right, this is the thing. So I can make it even more paradoxical. If I shave, I look like a 12-year-old. And guess what I hate? Looking like a 12-year-old. There's no win. So I hate shaving. I hate thinking about it. I hate every part of it. And now we're at the point of the speech where you're thinking, oh my God, is he still talking about shaving? Is he ever going to shut up about shaving? Is this guy a weirdo? And the answer is yes to all of those in just a minute. In my weird mind, that hatred for shaving, I started thinking, is there a way that I can visually represent that hatred? Can I put it out there so that I can understand it better, so that I can explain it to people better, so that they can look at it and maybe actually enjoy what they're looking at, enjoy my hate? So I made this. It is a little man shaving on top of a mountain of hair. Before you ask, yes, that is my hair. No, not all of it, but a good majority of it is mine. And yes, it has all been thoroughly cleaned before I put it up there. And I just, as a side note, I'll say, as someone who hates shaving, imagine how much I loved putting saran wrap over my sink every time I had to shave in order to save my shavings. Talk about coming head to head with your fears. So the typical reaction to this sculpture starts with curiosity and then awed disgust when people realize what it is they're looking at. And then as you contemplate it more, you start to see the whimsy in it. You see, the scale of the man compared to the mountain of hair is a representation of how many hours I feel like I've spent alone in the bathroom shaving. And the scale of the piece itself shows how important I think this is to the universe. It's tiny, right? Not a big deal. And as a casual viewer of the piece, you can look at it and you get insight into my personality without being bombarded with my depression and my PTSD. That being said, if you wanted to have a conversation about it, it certainly is a conversation starter, and we can have one just like we're having now. As the creator, I get to snicker and laugh to myself every time I shave now because I think of how ridiculous and funny this is. And it makes me hate shaving just a little bit less. Just a little. And I don't have to shave my hair anymore, that's the big bonus. What I didn't know when I made this piece was that it was really just the tip of the iceberg. This piece became the first in a series of other art pieces that helped me explain and understand myself to myself as well as to other people, or the ones that were willing to listen anyway. So a few weeks after I finished this, I was driving home and I saw a man all by himself standing in front of a large apartment building. He was in a suit, he was eating a candy bar, and his little dog was on a leash sniffing the ground around them. Pretty normal thing. Although it struck me as odd later. It wasn't normal. All those things individually, they're all fine, but when you put them together, it was strange. See, I'd driven this route before. That apartment building always has people outside of it. Why was there no one out there that day? It was a nice day. And the suit with the dog, was he so rushed to let the dog out? on his way home from work that he didn't have time to change out of the suit. Maybe he lives alone. And the candy bar, does he know about empty calories? Was he going to have a healthy dinner after that? Was that just a snack? Does he buy that on the way home, or does he have a whole bunch like already? Does he go to Costco and buy them in bulk? There were so many pieces to this unimportant puzzle. The thing that struck me as the most odd, though, was how incredibly small he looked in front of that building. He was alone and tiny, the building towering behind him. All of a sudden, it was reminiscent to me of the shaving piece, right? A lonely man standing in front of this building. Here we have a lonely, tiny, formerly hairy man standing on this mountain of hair. So I had this character, a character in a story. It was my own story, but the character couldn't look like me. It represents too many other people that have these same thoughts. It needed to be somebody else, a stranger, an everyman. I will also say it's much easier to have an exposition of your artwork or of your own uncomfortable life on display with your friends there looking at it if it doesn't look like you, but instead looks like somebody else, right? Because if you've never been to an art opening, there's nothing more awkward than trying to explain your own mental illness to a casual friend while they're sipping wine and eating bruschetta and their child is tugging on their leg because they're ready to go. And if you haven't been to an art opening, I just described one for you. So now I had this little character in my head, and I started making a list of the things that I hate. My list of loathing. It's a long list. This isn't all of it, but this is enough for today. I'm an angry person, yes. So I have this long list of loathing, and I've got the character, but I don't yet have my next moment of inspiration until I'm driving again. This time I was driving in the country, and I was on an overpass, and I looked out my window and I saw this cloud. It's the biggest cloud I've ever seen, or at least that's how it appeared at the time. I think had I not been on the overpass, I wouldn't have seen the cloud, because the overpass changed my perspective, right? Normally when you're driving, you're just looking ahead. I was on this bridge, so I was looking higher, so my perspective was skewed, and I was looking out, and I saw this cloud. So I immediately pulled over to take a picture. The cloud was massive, and the picture was terrible. Without getting into all the details of how cameras work, can we all just agree for a moment that perhaps our eyes have more capability and capacity than a mobile phone camera? Regardless, I was now armed with my picture and my little man, and I had this story to tell, so I drove home, and I was excited to start painting. What if instead of the apartment building, this little man was standing alone in a field with this giant cloud above him? So I started painting it. That's how it came out. Where's the cloud? Where's the cloud? Well, I will tell you, the cloud actually made him seem less alone. It was too much. The empty sky really emphasized how lonely, how the scale of him, everything, it just made it perfect. The empty sky did something else. It made me realize just how much sky there actually is out there. You see, we spend so much of our time looking down, not up. So all we ever see is that thin sliver of blue in the distance, but we keep the focus centered on ourselves. That's not the reality. The reality is the sky is big, the big blue sky. I added a balloon instead of the candy bar wrapper to help emphasize that idea of up, right? If he were to accidentally let go, that would float up, draws your eye up. candy bar wrapper would just fall on the ground. So that added whimsy, and it also emphasized the scale. This painting is the perfect representation of depression for me. You see, depression isn't always sad, but it is lonely. So I went back to my list. Yard work. That was up on the list. Who likes trimming bushes? I don't see any hands. How about if those bushes are giant dinosaur shaped? At least then it's funny, and it shows great dedication to the work. This piece is called Jurassic Park Avenue, and it is maybe my favorite piece of the entire series. The time that it would take to actually make that happen. It actually gets funnier, or maybe sadder, the more you look at it. Mobius lawn. Anybody who has mowed a lawn knows exactly how awful it is, right? As soon as you're done, it's ready to be mowed again. It is an infinite loop. You never stop mowing. This piece, to me, is maybe the most depressing, because maybe it's the most real. And it's also the one that most people relate to. Perhaps we all see the humor in the futility of it. One giant leap. This one shows the scope of how truly alone I have felt many times in my life. To be sure, I've never traveled to the moon, but could you imagine how lonely it would feel staring at Earth in the distance? No one to talk to, no one to have lunch with. This project was all about hate and frustration and anger. And I was having a great time with it. It was fun. And my whole family was involved, and my friends were involved, and it became massively huge. It was all about being diminutive, and everything was huge now. When all was said and done, there were sculptures, there were paintings, there were photographs, there were Christmas ornaments, there were written pieces, there were performance pieces, there was a book, there's a web page, there was even a scavenger hunt. And none of those things could be done alone. And I'm happy about that. It's all about being small in this big world. It's all about trying to find out who you are and where you fit. For those of us that have mental illness, or those of you that love someone that does, you know exactly how hard it can be to feel that small and to not know where you fit. Art has the power to speak for us when we don't know how to speak. Art can send that message and make it clear for others to see. So while this entire project started off with hate and anger and frustration, it ultimately ended with love and hope for all those people that feel small, like me. Thank you.